Welcome to Sarpy Outlook. I'm Peg O'Dea Lippert. Our guest is Deb Davis, Chief Deputy Election Commissioner in Sarpy County. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you, Peg. Thank you for having me.
The issue to be discussed is voting, Sarpy County, what works, what doesn't, and thoughts and plans about improvements. Deb, perhaps the best place to start is with voter registration, or even before that, voter requirements in Nebraska. And would you describe them and then walk us through the registration process, the various opportunities people have to register, when they need to re-register, and right up through the voting itself?
Okay. Requirements to vote in the state of Nebraska is that you need to be a U.S. citizen, 18 years or older, or 18 years of age by the first Monday in November. Okay? Registration, Sarpy County has a lot of convenient ways to register. You can register online. There is a form on our online site. You can fill that form out and mail it in. We always need to have the original when you do registration because we need to see the original signature. Secretary of State also has a form online on their website. That form has our address on the back of it, and so does our website have our address. When you go to the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, when you renew your license or get your first-time license, or like when they're 18 and they have to renew their license because they're 18, get a state ID or renew a state ID, or even doing a change of address on your license, the DMV has you fill out a voter registration form. Those come over to our office. And of course, you can always stop by our office, 501 Olson Drive, Suite 4 in Papillion. We are open from 8 to 4:45 Monday through Friday. So that's another way that you can register.
And what about the, I as a registrar, I've done voter registration. So the opportunity that people have at voter registration drives, could you just touch on that a bit?
Yes, you can be a deputy registrar within our county. And you need to be trained to be a deputy registrar. Also, when you be a deputy registrar, there has to be an opposite party with you when you're registering. But you can go out and register people to vote. You can help them fill out the form, make them understand the important parts of the form. Whenever someone registers, Peg, and you're working as a deputy registrar, remember that people need to use their legal name, not a Bill for a William. We really need to see that a William Davis is going to register to vote. But then you return those back to our office and we get those people registered. Once they're registered with us, we send everyone an acknowledgement card. So that card tells them, of course, their name and their address, gives them their polling site, their party affiliation that they've picked, and then it also tells them what they're going to be voting for, the district that they live in, and what they vote for.
So really registration, the process creates many opportunities for people to be registered.
Yes.
Okay. Now, could you walk us beyond that through voting itself, Deb?
When election day comes, the polls open at 8 a.m., open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and you can go to your polling site. If you're wondering where your polling site is, always call our office. Or our website has been updated where we have what we call a polling site indicator. So if you click on that, type in your address, it actually gives you your polling site and directions to drive there.
Oh my.
Yes, we've updated that in the last 4 years. Then you can also vote early, and there's lots of options with early voting. As far as being, early voting starts in our office 30 days prior to an election, where you can come into our office and vote early. Don't have to have a reason to vote early.
That's a change, isn't it, from the old absentee days?
The old, and that's why we call it early voting, not absentee now. And then there's also, you can request absentee voting by mail or by fax, as long as we have a signature. Some people question, why do I have to have a signature? Well, when you walk into a polling site, you sign a poll book When you sign this application for an early ballot, it's like signing the poll book. And we do compare those signatures before we ever send out a ballot. Okay.
That's interesting. From the voter's perspective, would you discuss the ins and outs of the provisional ballot?
Okay. Provisional ballots are kind of a misunderstood option that people have. We never deny a person the right to vote. So when you go to a poll and place, I'll give you some scenarios. Let's say you're new to the neighborhood, but you've always voted at this polling site. So you go to that polling site and your address is different than what is listed in the voter book. So then we'll say, you need to go call our office. So the poll worker will hand them a phone number, and we staff a phone bank on election day to take all calls. That's from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. That is staffed to take care of voters' questions. So then we'll tell that voter, yes, you're at the right polling site, but you'll need to vote provisional since you have an address change. And then when you vote provisional, you actually fill out a voter registration form again.
Oh, really?
Giving
Right.
us yes, right there. Giving us a new address. You vote provisional. You sign the certification in front of the provisional ballot. And then that is turned in just like all the other ballots are at the end of the evening.
Does that new registration form go in the envelope with that?
Yes, it actually goes on the outside of the envelope.
Okay.
We don't open those envelopes until we check that voter registration to make sure that we can count that actual ballot. And that is determined by our canvass board. We go over those. Those are the last ballots to be counted before we do the official numbers. Okay?
Okay. So if someone, in the situation you described, someone moved but failed to re-register, so they go to their old polling place or to the one indicated by the new address? Suppose they move I guess this applies within the county,
Right.
a move within the county.
Yes, they would go to their new polling site. Okay, again, we would still have them call, the poll workers are trained to have them call our office just to verify that they are at the right place. Once they do that, then they, again, vote provisional. They can vote at that time. As long as it's within the county,
Yes.
that vote should count.
Yes.
Where we have trouble sometimes is when someone comes into Sarpy County and is not re-registered from another county.
They
Not
can't.
always do those vote, most of the time those votes do not count.
That's what I
Because again, you
understand.
have to vote where you live. That's what I always tell people.
So if, again, the example of the person who moved within the county, and you say they would go to their new polling place, but if they didn't know what their new polling place was and they went to their old polling place based on their former address, because that's what their information would be since they hadn't re-registered, could they vote provisionally there, or would they be directed to go to the new site?
They would be directed to go to the
Okay.
new site. That's again, our poll workers are trained to have them call our
Okay.
office
That's
to
good.
verify, and then the inspector also calls to verify, to make sure
Okay.
that they're in the right, that we're sending them to the right place, and then they go to the new polling site. If someone can't, they can vote at that polling site, but again, not always will that ballot count because they're not voting for their district.
Oh, I see, because we aren't talking just general, say presidential election, but all
Right.
the other.
Right,
that-
so
okay, that makes
where we
total
kind of run
sense.
it, a good example of that is if you lived in Springfield and thought you could vote for the mayor available, you can't
Of
because you
course.
don't live in that
Of
area.
course.
That's kind of a simple
Yeah,
thought of how that
explanation,
works.
Yes. So well, that's good, because that often I think is a kind of a concern of people when they're said they have to vote provisionally. There's like something wrong with that, but it's
There
very
isn't.
accommodating.
It's very
actually.
accommodating, and it's making sure that we don't deny anybody the right to vote. They have a right. Not always is that vote counted because there has to be certain criteria met, but everyone has the right to vote.
Surely.
to
Well,
cast
we
a ballot.
talked some about the many opportunities for early voting, but would you touch specifically on persons who might be living outside the country and specifically military? We have a lot in this area who may be overseas.
Right. We have a program, again, a lot of our military do use our early ballot applications just to request a ballot to be sent. But there is also the Government Voting Assistance Program, and you can find that online at www.fvap.org. And what that will do is that brings up a ballot for them and an application. Sometimes our military, especially in the presidential, will only vote for the president and the vice president.
Because they wouldn't be aware of
Right,
what's going on
that things are
locally.
going. But that is actually online, and that
Oh, really?
ballot can be emailed to our office.
Oh, really?
And then once we get it in our office, of course, we remake it into an actual ballot so that it can be counted through our voting counting machines. All right. And when we do that, that's always in a team of two people of opposite party. We have what we call a resolution board that does that. But that's one of the most convenient ways. Also, that can be done by the spouses and the dependents that live with them overseas, or people working overseas. That's available.
Isn't there some greater length of time? Isn't it like 45 days out that they can request and vote earlier than we who, for
Normally
whatever
would.
reason?
Right, yes. And they have to make sure that, again, just like everybody else, that that's in our office by 8 o'clock on election night. Okay? So a lot of times when they're doing that, we suggest the earlier you get it back to our office, the better.
So what if someone were overseas and hadn't registered? Is there a way that they can register online?
If they've done it in a timely manner, yes, they can send their registration to us. Of course, again, registrations need to be received as the original, so we would have to have them mail that or overnight that to us along with their ballot. And as long as we get that within that, it has to be to us before the last Friday,
the last Friday before election.
right,
I
the
believe,
third
isn't it?
Friday before election. So, like if your elections, usually we always tell people by the end of October we've got to have that.
For general.
For exact dates, they should always call our office because the election calendar does change with each election.
Or
So
can go online again to the website for
yes,
this.
and
for
it'll
the county.
tell them there when they have to have it back to our office.
Deb, now I wonder if we could look kind of from the inside out.
Okay.
It seems to me that some of the misunderstandings on election day have to do with poll worker knowledge. And would you please discuss the training provided and the various levels of responsibility on election day?
Okay, all right. Before each election, it is required that we train all of our poll workers. There's a 90-minute session that we do with training. We have a DVD that we show them that actually walks them through a mock day at the poll site, what it is like. There's an extensive training manual that we give them if they want it, or it is online for them to read. We recommend that they read that before each election. Along with their supplies that are gone out to the polling site, we have a detailed instruction manual for them, which covers every scenario. And of course, we're always there to call, especially during election day. That's what we're there for, is to call. And it gets to be a pretty long day if we don't get a lot of calls. So we hope that people call, both voters and our workers, call and ask questions. Each board consists of 2 clerks, 2 judges, and an inspector. Our office has gone beyond that. We have a district inspector who goes out and looks at each polling site, makes sure the polling site is up and running right, answers any questions, runs out supplies. I mean, they're just there as a backup for everything, and that's something our office has established, the district inspector position. We need poll workers every election. So volunteer-wise, we'd love to have you call our office and volunteer to be a poll worker.
Although you pay poll workers.
We do. That is a paid position. We pay to train them. To give you an example, we have 52 polling sites. They're staffed with 5 people. We need over 300 people between election workers and subs to help us if someone gets ill or can't make it election day, to run every election. So it is important that we have up-and-coming new poll workers to train. Basically, they're trained to the best of our knowledge when they leave the training class. We always encourage them to ask questions. The inspector is more knowledgeable than the clerks and the judges, and the manual is there for them to answer
What's the
questions.
difference between the clerks and the judges, Deb? And I
Okay.
understand the inspector is kind of the on-site supervisor, if you will.
Yes. The clerks, one takes care of the list of voters. So when you walk up, they'll say, what is your name? Where do you live? The second person is the person that helps them sign in,
The book.
and it gives them a line number. Everyone has a line number. Then one of the judges gives out the ballots, and the other judge receives the ballots and puts them actually into the ballot box.
Okay. Well, thank you. That helps to understand. Let's talk about vote counting. Some people I've spoken with are kind of fearful of voting early, somehow thinking, or voting by mail, that vote won't be counted. And I've been there and I've seen that. But would you just discuss how the vote counting proceeds?
Okay,
Yeah.
the early voting actually, Peg, are the first ones that are counted. When we give out the early numbers at 8 o'clock, that day we've counted all the early ballots that have come into our office.
But they're not counted before the polls close, is that correct?
Well, early ballots are counted because with the last day that you can actually vote early is at 4:45 on the Monday before the election.
Okay.
So those ballots are the first ones we count on election morning.
On election morning.
Right.
By 8 o'clock you start with those.
Right, and those are the first numbers that you see when we're starting to give you election
I
results.
didn't understand that. I thought
Right.
that none were counted until the polls closed.
No, actually we do, and we could actually start counting 2 days ahead of time
really?
by law, but we have not seen a need to do that yet because we can normally handle what comes in. So those are the first ballots that
So
are
that's
counted.
reassuring to be able to
Right.
tell people, no, your vote will be counted first.
Yes, that is the first vote that is counted. Then we count everything on election night except provisionals. So there's nothing left over. When we give you the unofficial results at the end of the night, we've counted every ballot that is in our office. So everything that's come in from the precincts, all the early voting, any of the military ballots that have come in that we've had to remade, those are all done and counted that night. Usually, the unofficial results are counted by every ballot, and then the provisionals are counted later because they have to be reviewed. We have to make sure that the voter registration's in there and filled out properly and signed. And then those are reviewed by our canvass board, but they are counted before we give the official results.
Which may be several days later.
Yes.
Would you discuss a bit too, Deb, about the opportunity for vote count watchers?
Yes, we do offer, there is a special area that we've designated off in our building that has windows that allows you to watch the early voting that goes on. Unfortunately, we've only probably had 1 or 2 people watch in the 4 years that I've been doing elections. But there is always the opportunity. The only thing that the vote watcher can't be is part of a political party. They can't be part of not political party, part of a campaign.
Okay.
They can't be a campaign worker, had anything to do with a campaign. But you, Peg, could come watch. Us
A
count
paid, when
votes.
you say campaign worker, a paid campaign worker.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Or the candidate,
Right,
him or
himself.
herself, I
Right,
assume. Yeah.
right.
Now, is there any? Well, that's helpful. I think it's important for people to know all of these safeguards
Right.
exist. Now, is there anything else that we should discuss?
Not that I really know of. There's just so many. I don't think people realize what we've all kind of done in the last 4 years. We've upgraded our website, and I said the polling place indicator is on our
That sounds
website.
great. Like a MapQuest almost. it
Right, you
sounds
can,
like.
a MapQuest. Online, there's actually online applications for early voting. The early voting applications are also published in the paper
That's
right
right.
before the elections. We have district maps. So if you're concerned where you live and go, well, why don't I vote for this? You can actually click on a map on our website and see what districts you live in and what you vote for in the different districts. So that's available. We have the 24-hour drop box outside of our office to drop off your ballots. So we've made several changes to try to improve, what's available for voters in education.
Good. I'd like to move on now and look to the future. Section 4 of the Civil Rights Act was recently struck down by the Supreme Court. And needless to say, that causes anxiety, I think not only in states who are directly affected because of their past voting history, but in such states as Nebraska also, where we have had some who would like to create obstacles for people voting rather than expanding opportunity for people to vote. But I'd like to say for Nebraska has an impeccable record. There's no avoiding any semblance at all of any fraud, and I've studied this over the last several years. And therefore, any efforts that the legislature might try to implement that would impact or restrict voting, I can emphatically say will be viewed as political and be considered to be motivated to affect the end result. With that said, what plans are underway in Sarpy County to expand perhaps the hours of voting, past the typical workday, maybe on weekends, something that for those people who do have to work, is there any talk of their being able to vote on the weekend or stay open maybe one night a week until 7 or 8 o'clock for early voting?
We have discussed that within our office. Unfortunately, whenever you do that, you're affecting taxpayer dollars because we have to pay overtime to those hours. And currently, we've just not seen a need we have to look at voter needs versus spending taxpayer dollars to have that available. And we currently have not really seen the need to have that. It'd be something that we would look at in the future.
And you could do that within the purview of the law in Nebraska, yes. Other also then presentations such as this, what efforts are being made to educate the voters? And, the example of, I've had people tell me that they thought that they couldn't vote, this is several days before the election because I didn't register. Well, people need to know that they don't need to register every time they vote. So do you have plans to expand voter education?
Commissioner Benna and myself have done a lot of civic speaking within organizations that request us, and we're always available to do so. Yet people do not need to re-register unless they move.
Yes.
And just moving, we need them to register to move so that we don't have a lot of provisional ballots and people that get discouraged because they're not at the right place to vote. We talk to seniors at several high schools. We help them register, and we talk to them about the voter process. We do mock elections at schools, so they kind of see what the process is and talk to them about registering. But we're always available to speak. Whenever any legislative law changes, we try to do articles in the local papers so that people know that these changes might be affecting the way that they vote or how they vote.
Good. Have you given any consideration to locating the drop boxes for the early ballots outside the immediate metro areas, such as perhaps Gretna and Springfield, although those areas don't seem really remote, but if the goal is to make it easy for people to vote, has that occurred?
Well, we've talked about that again, but we are, as far as Nebraska is, we're one of the smallest geographic counties for us, for people to get to our
yes,
office.
I guess we are when you think of out west.
Right. But we, again, we have the drop box outside of our office. If we were to do the other drop boxes in other communities, again, it takes in to extra staff. You have to have 2 members of a different party to go out. We would probably want to do drop box pickup at least twice a day, morning and night, to pick up those overtime hours. So again, we're looking at spending extra taxpayer dollars. Right now, we've been very fortunate that we have like 95% return of our early ballots. They've been returned. You can mail your early ballot. It is $1.10 to mail currently without any postage change. Right now, it's $1.10. You can drop them off. We have several people that collect them in the neighborhood and bring them and drop them all off in the box.
Can you do that for more than one person? Is that the agent?
Actually,
role?
It's up to the voter if they feel comfortable with that person bringing. When you're talking about an agent, you're talking about someone
on election day.
Yeah, taking out ballots.
Oh, okay.
And you can be an agent for 3 people besides yourself. You sign the application as an agent, and you can either have us, if it's not election day, you can have us mail that ballot to that person, or hand carry it. Again, you have to have those back to our office by 8 o'clock that night in order for them to be counted.
I just know your new location is probably much more comfortable for the employees, but it's not the most easily accessed. area in town, you know.
It isn't. People are getting better about knowing where they are. We have put up 5 signs on the different locations to try to show people where we are. You know, we have it on our website where we are. The other thing that we have talked about doing is putting in a kiosk in the courthouse. And
Oh,
that
that-
kiosk would be for voter registration and, again, ballot drop-off. Because a lot of people think that we are just right in the courthouse, and we're not.
Yes.
So
I like that idea.
yeah,
Deb.
we would put up a kiosk, which would have probably a drop box, and then also voter registrations there available for people, and they could put that in the box also.
Well, and I don't know how burdened your employees are on a regular basis prior to election, but maybe it would be possible to stagger some of their work hours too, so you wouldn't end up doing overtime to cover some of these extra tasks.
Well, we budget for so many hours each year, and I can tell you that we put in a lot of long hours before an election.
And after too, I'm sure.
And after too, we're there a long time, and we're there on weekends sometimes just to get caught up from during the week.
Well, I'm honored to be an official deputy registrar in this county and therefore across the state. And I've been a poll worker and a vote count watcher. And as an avid activist, I've made thousands of phone calls, so have kind of seen the election process from many perspectives. And as we all know, the voting in this country is one of our most highly, if not our most highly prized right. And apart from the gerrymandering of the districts, I think Nebraska's system has a lot of integrity, and I'm happy to and proud to say that. And so in concluding, I want to thank you for your time today and for your, not only your knowledge, but your helpfulness throughout the recent election cycles, Deb, since you've been in your position. And I trust that we can be assured that every effort will continue to be made in this county to make voting easier and not at all difficult. And thank you so much.
Thank you. That is our goal, and that is our responsibility, and we will continue that forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.